Hey everyone, today I have another layout update. I've been doing a lot of scenery work, so let's get right into it. I've started by painting the entire surface of my layout either black or gray. Sort of around the roadbed I painted it gray, and then in a few other areas where I wasn't sure what I was going to do I painted it black. And this is just sort of to hide any mistakes I might make, like if I miss a spot with any paint or scenery or ballast or anything, it won't be too glaring because, well, it's just black, so it's just like, hey, that's just a shadow or something. But yeah, I feel like that's an important step a lot of people miss, and that's what I missed when I built my previous layout. So I just sort of, in a few goes, just painted the entire surface of the layout where I didn't have track or anything. Yeah, so now I pretty much have a clean slate to work with. The next step was to detail the track all the way around the layout, and this pretty much meant painting the outsides and the insides of each rail. I painted the outer rails brown and the inner rail black on both loops, and, well, I did it pretty much everywhere. There are a few spots where, you're not really going to see it if I didn't paint it, but it definitely gives the visual impression that I want. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Then, of course, I also washed the roadbed on the track. I tried to get a darker look for the inner loop compared to the outer loop, because I think I've said before, I want the outer loop to look a little bit better maintained than the inner loop. But, yeah, that's sort of what I did. And the next step was putting in the ballast, and I did this over the course of a few weeks. I've ended up getting pretty good at it. Just by spreading out some wood glue, pouring the ballast over it, and I'm using kitty litter as ballast. Spreading that over it, and sort of getting it in the right position, and then dropping with an eyedropper what do you call them? A pipette, yeah. Dropping a wet water and glue mixture onto the kitty litter, and, well, it's solid, and I don't think it looks half bad. Again, it's not the most professional material, obviously, but hey, I didn't even get through a whole thing of kitty litter doing this entire layout, so it's very cheap. And, I mean, for what you pay for, you get quite a lot. And I think in my use case, it makes a lot of sense to use. So, yeah, I think that turned out okay. I've gone in and sort of weathered the ballast around the track to sort of blend it into the roadbed. And there's a few spots where I'd like to do this a little better, or at least give another coat of it. But I washed the inner loop a lot heavier than the outer loop, or at least the paint on the outer loop was a lot more diluted, so that I would get, again, a more sort of oily, older look for the inner loop, and a sort of slightly newer, well-maintained look for the outer loop. And I guess sort of my logic with this is the inner loop, it's for slower speeds. A little bit more often than not, freight trains will be running on the inner loop. And only diesel and steam locomotives are running on the inner loop for the most part. But on the outer loop, this is very much a different story. It's a higher speed track. It mostly sees passenger service. I mean, I do run freight trains on it sometimes, but I guess in my head, this is more of a passenger right-of-way. And then, obviously, this mostly sees, well, it does see all three types of motive power, but it does see a lot of electric use. And of course, electric locomotives don't put as much crap into the surrounding area as a diesel or steam engine does. So that's sort of my logic. And of course, this would probably be better maintained than a slower speed line. So yeah, that's sort of what I wanted to go for, if you can notice that. You might be able to notice this very subtle detail that I've added. These are supposed to represent gutters or conduit. There's a lot of words for these, but it's basically a channel beside the track that you route wires for various railroad purposes. I have a little bit running here, and then it sort of goes off the layout. Then I have it running here all the way over here, ends there, and it's supposed to continue through there, but we have it running over here. And then I've kept running it, and it stops right over there. So this was just done with some lengths of wood, just all put into place. I just scraped off the ballast where I needed to put it in there with glue, and I'm pretty happy with it. Painted it up into gray, and it's sort of a it's one of those very subtle details that I've wanted to add to a layout for a while. And I don't see it on too many layouts, so there's a little trackside detail you might have never noticed. Speaking of trackside details, I've added some transmission poles, just utility poles, whatever you want to call them. I have a few over here, and then over on that side of the layout I have the same deal in the same sort of area. But here I have wires strung between them, and it's really subtle. You can barely see it against anything but the back wall there. But I really like how it's turned out. I might want to get some thicker thread at some point. But yeah, just threading the wires around the insulators on those. These are Mark's utility poles, by the way. I just painted them the same gray as everything else and painted the little insulators brown. So yeah, this is just another trackside detail that I thought I might as well add. And speaking of electrical transmission, I have this pylon here that I've built. This is made from a superstructure from a beacon tower, a rotary beacon that I had that wasn't working, unfortunately. So I figured I might as well put it to use. It had that sort of tapered look to it that is sort of exactly the structure that these pylons tend to have. And I thought that that would actually fit the theme of my layout really well. I see these pretty often, so I thought it would be nice to incorporate one on the layout. I just soldered together this little pointy bit at the top. These are all bits of HO rail. Added the cross arms with a variety of a few materials, and painted the whole thing primer gray, and painted the base concrete gray. So yeah, I feel like that's one unique detail that you also don't see on too many layouts, but they're very common in real life. You might have noticed that I've started to do some foliage and natural scenery, and I'm pretty happy with this so far, but I guess I'll go through how I've implemented stuff like this. So first I wanted to sort of get a nice base coat in here. So I sort of made a mix of, what colors? Like a raw sienna and some black and white, and just sort of dabbed it around here, got different spots, tried to get a variety of colors in there. And I let that dry. I painted this area over here. I painted sort of the very inside of the inner loop over there. And then I painted just some odd spots over here to fill them in. After I applied the paint, I spread on some Mod Podge with a brush, and then sprinkled on some turf. This is just sort of a more earthy brown turf. And then I also sprinkled just a tiny bit of the green turf in there. And then I let that dry. And then, as you can see in this section of grass, I spotted on some Mod Podge in areas where I'd like some greener grass to go, and then I sprinkled it on there. And then what I've done over here to get sort of this more varied look is, well, I actually used a huge variety of scenic materials to achieve this, and I'm still working on it. I still want to add more variations of foliage in here. But the majority of that is just the Woodland Scenics foliage stuff. It's a little pricey for what it is, but it's worth it, especially if you are doing a smaller area. And I have these little plants too. You can get these at a hobby store for pretty cheap. They just sort of add a little color, you know. Let me see. Yeah, there's a few here, like there's some yellow flowers there, pink flowers, red. Just a nice variety of plants over there. And then specifically, I went in and I wanted there to be some sort of more dry grassland plants in here. So I got this yellow grass material, cut it, and glued it in where I thought it would look good. And then put in these tan plants. They're supposed to represent wheat, but I think they give the visual impression of just Midwestern wild grasses, and I think it just sort of gives the aesthetic that I wanted to get. I might want a little bit more of those sorts of plants, but yeah, if you live anywhere in the Midwest, then you probably know exactly the sort of grassland that I want to emulate. But yeah, I think how it currently looks is definitely something I'm happy with. I'm thinking about a few things for the layout, larger things that I've sort of put off. I have previously mentioned that I wanted to build an elevated section where I would have some urban scenes and I would be able to sort of detail those. I've considered it, and I sort of thought like maybe I don't want to do that, or maybe I do. And I think I might do that. So sometime soon I might put up some pillars around here to support the styrofoam. And I don't know, I've been thinking about it quite a bit. Like, I'd like this area to sort of be closer to like the heart of Chicago, because I'm going to try to model urban Chicago scenes. But this is sort of, I'm going to have like row houses, some apartment buildings and whatnot, maybe an L line, probably not a operating L line, but definitely a cosmetic one. Maybe even some taller buildings thrown in there. But then on the elevated section over here, I'd like to do more of a suburb, like something that's still technically in the city of Chicago, but it's a lot less urban. But yeah, and sort of have it get progressively more urban as you get to the back, so that nothing too tall is blocking anything in the scenes there. So let me know what you think about that. I don't really know what else I do in some of the blank spaces. I think that'd be nice. I really want to model streets and scenes and buildings and whatnot, and I think that'd be really fun. So yeah, tell me what you think. If you have any idea of things I could incorporate, make sure to let me know. Now that I'm done looking at everything that I've put in, we might as well do a train run. Watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.